2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Show. I'm Mark, that's Marcus, and Marcus, we are back for some more Gold Cup action. We're going to talk a little bit of European transfers going on, a lot of Neymar noise, and a lot of action in the Premier League. But USA versus El Salvador in the Gold Cup quarterfinals took place. It's Thursday for us right now. Took place last night, Wednesday. USA won, 2-0. That's what we wanted to have happen, I guess. But this was a weird game. It was sloppy. USA really didn't look very good, in my opinion. Plus, it got pretty nasty. Everybody's talking about Romero biting Altidore, but there was just a lot of questionable challenges that went uncalled or deserved cards and were only free kicks. But I think the biggest takeaway, and the reason it was able to get to that point, is because the USA couldn't really establish much of a rhythm. And it was surprising with Michael Bradley and Clint Dempsey being in the game, and Darlington Nagbe in the game, Josie Altidore. So all these veteran guys with a lot of experience and very talented players weren't able to really put together a solid performance. And that's kind of been the theme for the U.S., despite getting the results that they want. So my question for you is, can you figure out any reason why the U.S. hasn't been able to really put together a full 90 minutes convincing performance?
Because they haven't put together a full team yet, based off of a lot of new guys came in at the beginning, and they don't have that familiarity with each other. And then, you know, let's call them the old guard came back in for this game. Now, they've only been in this camp for, let's say, about a week or so. So they have familiarity amongst themselves, but combine them with 7 or 8 guys that they haven't played a lot of games with before. I think that's the biggest reason for the sloppy start, and it was it took the U.S. a long time to get going. Bruce Arena said it was about 30 minutes before they started to play. For me, it was about 40 minutes before they started to play.
Right.
And I thought just overall it was a very pedestrian victory. Nothing too inspirational about it, nothing much to hang their hats on, but at this stage of the tournament, of course, the result is most important, and that's what they got.
And again, I think the biggest headline, or what's really grabbing people's attention that maybe didn't actually watch the whole match, was Henry Romero biting Josie Altidore. I think we can say he bit him. It's pretty clear to me, at least in the video. And it goes back, I think, that kind of behavior in the game was building and building and building.
Yeah.
And the referee, Drew Fisher, he just kind of lost control of the match in my mind. And he really let it get out.
I don't think he ever had control of the match.
Right, yeah, he never had control.
Yeah.
And there were 2 yellow cards early, like in the 25th minute or something, and a little bit before. But he just kind of let these guys get away with things. And I think he was afraid to issue a red card, is really what happened.
The game was one of the most brutal I've seen ever, with the United States involved in. And it reminded me of the World Cup, I think it was the quarterfinal between Colombia and Brazil. There were 46 fouls in that game. Neymar had his back broken by a challenge from behind from a Colombian defender. You know how many fouls there were last night? 46. At some point, I saw a lot of those 50-50 challenges. U.S. players, and definitely the Salvadoran players too, were going in hard. I mean, it was like with reckless abandon, and I was surprised that the referee didn't step in at any point, not in the challenges, but you know, there was a lot of play acting, a lot of elbows, a lot of it was aggressive and physical at the beginning, and that was as tame as the game got.
Right.
That was the tamest I would describe that game. It was brutal.
And Romero's biting Altidore was sort of the peak moment, but it's hard
Omar
to even...
Gonzalez also claims that another player, Darwin Serene, bit him.
Right.
And that wasn't caught on camera. So we have 2 United States players who said, you know, one was on camera, but who were bit last night.
Yeah,
and
it's just like, this just can't happen. It's a FIFA sanctioned tournament.
Yeah.
Like this is just...
It was one of the
Bush League stuff.
The most brutal game I can remember with the United States involved in, and I'm surprised it didn't devolve into a street fight, because that's where it was headed from the opening whistle.
And it's kind of a shame to see it develop to that point. And it's hard to even say who really started it. I mean, obviously, El Salvador had sort of the most egregious offenses when it was all said and done, but it was just physical the whole time, and I think both sides were guilty of some not okay challenges.
Yeah.
But U.S. came out with the victory. Omar Gonzalez scored his second goal of the tournament, and Eric Lahai, is that how you say it? Yeah, more or less. He scored in stoppage time of the first half. So up until the 40th minute, it was really just not an enjoyable game for a USA fan, and just a lot of frustration and why can't we figure this out? And we get the 2 goals to go ahead, and it felt like we didn't really even deserve it. But it was a great pass in on a set piece from Michael Bradley, and then Clint Dempsey with a fantastic turn to set up the second goal.
Yeah.
So I kind of those are the 2 really most positive moments, obviously because of the goals. But when I think back, I can't really think of any other positive moments where I really felt like the U.S. was playing well, besides just when they scored the goals. And that's always kind of a bad sign.
I would agree. But the way I look at it is after the roster reinforcements, this is a new team.
Yeah.
The lineups are new, and they're going to get 3 games together. At least, we assume. Well, now they've confirmed that they're going to have 3 games together.
Yeah.
That was the first one. Not
so
that good.
Great. And with all the players they brought in, we were talking about it, that they are the favorites for this tournament without question.
Sure.
Despite whatever other team is doing and how they look in form with the talent that we have, not winning the tournament would be a letdown. But were you surprised when Bruce Arena brought in all these big names to the roster?
No, because I think what he's trying to do is 2 things. First is win the tournament, which would complete. He talked about a perfect year earlier in 2017 where he was saying qualify for the World Cup and win the Gold Cup would be a perfect 2017 for the United States. So this is an effort to absolutely go out and win the Gold Cup. But it's also to expose the, let's call them the rest of the players from the B team that were, that had remained, to the standard that is going to be set and that they'll have to meet if they're going to be part of World Cup qualifying rosters and ultimately World Cup rosters.
Yeah.
So when you have Howard, Bradley, Dempsey, Altidore, these guys are surefire starters on the A team.
Yeah.
And I think having them come in and train with the guys who maybe weren't, they weren't on that A roster, I think that'll cascade down the standard that they set and show them what it really takes to play for the national team, and especially play 100 times like most of these guys.
A lot of lead by example going on.
Yes, so it's leading by example for more players than just the A squad.
Yeah. So the USA will take on Costa Rica in the semifinal on Saturday, July 22nd, 9 o'clock at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, just outside of Dallas, home of the Dallas Cowboys.
Jerry's World.
Jerry's World. Costa Rica's on really good form. They're playing well in this tournament. 1-0 win over Honduras. They tied Canada 1-1. 3-0 win over French Guiana, and 1-0 win over Panama. So they're looking pretty good, and I think they pose a pretty big challenge to the U.S., so we'll see what happens. But we wanted to talk about Mexico because it sort of has had this feeling of all roads lead to a USA versus Mexico final at the Gold Cup this year. Mexico didn't make any roster changes, so again, the U.S. will have the superior roster from a talent standpoint when you just look at it on paper, but they will have had a whole camp and a whole tournament to sort of play together if the U.S. and Mexico are to meet in the final. So my question to you is, why didn't they make any changes for the knockout rounds? Were you surprised by that? And are they going to pose a really big threat to the U.S. if they were to meet?
I was not surprised because Mexico has sort of an alternate goal. They have another goal for this tournament as opposed to the United States. What Mexico's trying to do is build for the future and also deepen their own World Cup roster. So most of their starters went to the Confederations Cup, most of their frontline players. And what Juan Carlos Osorio is trying to do is build for the next cycle. A lot of Mexico's leading players are, they're in their late 20s, heading towards their 30s. And so I have a feeling that bringing those other guys in might almost damage the confidence. You saw what Germany did in the Confederations Cup, where it's like, we want these young guys to come in and perform in a tournament. I think Mexico's doing the same thing on a smaller scale, where they want their players to get that whole tournament experience, experience the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat for themselves, and not have to, rely on or look for these bigger name players for guidance.
Right. So it's kind of just all on them as the younger players.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and so the final would be next Wednesday on the 29th, I believe, of July, or 26th.
26th, yes.
So if USA and Mexico are to meet, it would be in that game. And I think that's what CONCACAF is hoping for.
Sure.
I think.
And I think most of the fans are as well.
Yeah. But for now, it's USA. They'll take on Costa Rica on Saturday, looking to find their rhythm, looking to get a really convincing result against a squad that they certainly are capable of doing so against. I think that'll be the focus for people that follow the national team, is not just the win, but can we win in a convincing way, because we haven't done it yet in this tournament.
I don't expect that to happen. I think United States is going to beat Costa Rica, and the scoreline might be convincing, but I'm not expecting a vintage performance from this team. And should they advance to the final against Mexico or against any other opponent, I'm not expecting a vintage performance. After 4 games in this tournament, I've given up on expecting to see a good show.
That's fair. But let's move on to Europe.
Okay.
A lot of attention swirling around Neymar.
Yeah.
The Barcelona star. He has been linked to PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. What's the likelihood that this deal takes place, that this transfer happens?
Well, it's now Thursday, or somebody asked me on Tuesday what the likelihood what it was. I said, maybe 5%, 10%.
Okay.
Fast forward 24 hours to Wednesday, and I bumped it up to about 25, 30%. A lot of the signals and a lot of the indications are that this is real. The interest is real. The link is real. And we're getting media reports from Brazil, we're getting media reports from France, and we're getting media reports from Spain that all say different things, but the general consensus is that PSG is definitely interested in Neymar.
Right.
They want to bring him in as the face of their global project. And Neymar is, a reporter asked him on video, is this true? What's happening? And he stood there silently. So that silence was actually deafening for a lot of Barcelona fans, because Barcelona would like him to come out and say, I'm happy here, I'm not leaving, I'm staying this season.
Yeah.
So that's real. Another way of looking at this is that this could be a payback operation. Barcelona has been chasing PSG's young Italian central midfielder Marco Verratti for pretty much all summer.
Yeah.
And PSG would probably want somewhere in the vicinity of 75 to 90 million for him. Barcelona, I don't think, can afford that kind of transfer fee without selling. Without selling.
Yeah.
So Verratti has been making quite a bit of noise over the summer about wanting to go to Barcelona. PSG seems like they're digging their heels in, and they're saying, you're not going. We want to win the Champions League with you. We want you to help us do it.
Yeah.
But Barcelona has been either directly or indirectly encouraging him to agitate for a transfer. And I think Barcelona's president came out today and said this is payback for Barcelona's interest in Verratti. So it's like, you go after Verratti, Barcelona, well, PSG, we're going to go after Neymar.
I think this is kind of a deal where at the moment it's exciting, but it's one that I kind of hope falls through and Neymar stays put in Barcelona, because the three-headed monster with Suarez, Neymar, and Messi up top for Barcelona is like kind of the most talented collection of forwards on the same team almost ever.
Yeah.
And for them to keep pace with Real Madrid in La Liga and sort of maintain that Messi versus Ronaldo rivalry, I think Neymar's a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And if he's gone, not that Barcelona suddenly is no good, but it's a very significant blow. And PSG competing in the Champions League is great for PSG, but I'm not sure how much that really grabs the interest as much as Barcelona being good.
Yeah, and another question is how much time does Barcelona have left in this golden era that they've experienced? They were knocked out before the semifinal round of the Champions League for the first time in 7 or 8 years last season. So we have to wonder, how close is this thing to the end? Carlos Puyol's gone, Xavi's gone, Andres Iniesta's got a year or 2 left. Lionel Messi just signed a big contract, but he's reaching that age 30 part, and Luis Suarez is around 30 years old, 31 years old. This Barcelona team doesn't have. They're closer to the end of their reign than the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how much time they have left, but and I think the departure of Luis Enrique as coach is telling. You would think that's a job that he would want to keep, or that people would be banging down the door to get. They settled on Ernesto Valverde, who is, he's kind of a club insider. He's connected to the club, but it's not somebody that, it's not a big Showtime kind of name.
Right. It's not Neymar.
Yeah. Well, just for their coach, it's not. You might expect somebody with a little bit more gravitas among the ranks of world coaches. So, it's tough to really gauge. So. We also hear Neymar wants to be a Ballon d'Or winner and be the best in the world.
Tough to do that when you're on the same team as Messi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess we'll see how it all shakes out. But you wanted to focus in on the Premier League as well.
Yes.
A lot of action. Alvaro Morata to Chelsea, Romelu Lukaku to Manchester United, and Arsenal with a big signing. Who do you think is going to be the top player from these new signings?
This will be probably the million-dollar question this season in the Champions League. In the Premier League. These 3 strikers are all big money signings. Morata is a club record for Chelsea. Lacazette is a club record for Arsenal. Lukaku, 75 million, huge money for Manchester United. So these 3 will be under intense scrutiny all season. Now, it's tough to tell what's going to happen. We don't know what the rest of their team will look like transfer-wise, especially in the case of Lacazette. How he performs depends a lot on what Arsenal does with Alexis Sanchez, who's their leading light, undisputed.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I guess I would try and rank them. I think Lacazette will score the most goals.
Yeah?
And achieve the least success.
What do you mean by that?
Just in raw numbers, Lacazette, of the 3, Lacazette will score the most goals in all competitions.
Okay.
And I think I say that because Arsenal creates a lot of chances. They score a lot of goals. Very open, very attacking team.
Yeah.
And from everything I've heard about him, he's ice cold in front of goal. I think Arsenal is also furthest away from winning the Premier League.
Okay.
They might win the Europa League.
So are you saying that with Lacazette scoring the most goals, that probably Alexis Sanchez will not have a very good campaign?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
You're not saying that?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying of the 3, Lacazette, Lukaku, and Morata.
Yeah.
I think Lacazette will lead in the goals.
Yeah.
But his team will struggle the most.
Okay.
Or they will be the most disappointed.
Okay.
All right. Second,
yeah,
Lukaku will score the 2nd most goals. And his team, Manchester United, they will taste the 2nd most success.
Okay.
In terms of being closest to winning the Premier League and the Champions League, which they're setting out to do. Morata, I think, will score the fewest goals.
Yeah, by a lot?
No, not by a lot, but he will score the fewest goals. And he will help Chelsea be more successful in terms of their own aims than Manchester United and Arsenal.
Interesting.
So to answer your question, I guess there's no clear answer.
Well, it depends on what kind of success you want.
Do you want goals or team success?
I'm sure each person has their own answer for that question.
If you want goals, Lacazette, Lukaku, Morata. If you want success, Morata, Lukaku, Lacazette.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Okay. So then with Alexis Sanchez, how do you think Arsenal is going to – how do you think he's going to perform this year?
What's
going to end up with
this is Arsenal's $1 million dollar, pound, euro question. Sanchez is their best player.
Yeah.
And he's entering the last year of his contract. I do not think he will sign the contract. So what came out this week was that Arsene Wenger said, we're not selling him. He's staying at Arsenal, he's got a contract, and he's going to play it out.
Yeah.
The articles that came out said the decision is based off of Arsenal achieving their aims in the Premier League is worth more money in dollars and cents than what he can get, what Sanchez will garner on the transfer market. So if they keep Sanchez, they make the Champions League, get about £50 million in the bank, and great. And then allow him to go wherever he wants as a free agent next summer. That's what the articles, that's what the news cycle is saying at this point. I do not believe it. I followed Arsene Wenger for quite some time. I've never known Arsene Wenger to turn down £50 million where he might have none next year.
Right.
Just the way he's managed his team over the years. And I know the finances have changed at the club and in the Premier League, but I don't think Wenger's psychology has. He doesn't strike me as the type to turn down $50 million.
Right.
And I think Sanchez will be sold. I know Wenger came out this summer and said, came out this week and said he's going to stay. He's got a contract. But he said that with Robin van Persie. Said that with Cesc Fabregas. Said that with Nasri.
He said, he's saying all the right things to calm everybody down, calm fan bases down. But
I think if
probably like the January transfer window, you think he'll
I'm thinking sometime in August.
Really, you think before the season?
Month. Yes, I don't think Alexis Sanchez will be an Arsenal player on September 1st.
Well, that's a shame for Arsenal fans, I guess.
Depends on what happens next.
Yeah.
But yes. Why keep a player that doesn't want to be there if he doesn't want to be there?
Does bringing in Lacazette make it easier to get rid of Alexis Sanchez for the year?
Because Lacazette on his own, no.
Yeah.
But it softens the blow.
But Arsene Wenger was sort of being talked about as being replaced towards the end of last season.
Right.
And there's no reason that those talks wouldn't come up again. He's probably on a year-to-year basis as far as public opinion goes with his coaching position.
He's on a week-to-week basis with public opinion. With the club, let's say year-to-year.
So would it not surprise you if maybe Alexis Sanchez was kept around as sort of insurance to I need all hands on deck in case one guy isn't able to perform, I can put in Alexis Sanchez and I can trust this guy to perform for me?
If Wenger is acting selfishly, it would be best to keep Alexis Sanchez for a season.
Yeah.
If Wenger is acting in the long-term best interests of Arsenal Football Club, then I think he'll decide it would be best to sell him.
And that's probably what he's doing.
And reinvest. That's all he's done for the past, how many years has it been? 22, 23 years?
Right.
I have a hard time seeing him turning down a big money offer. If it comes from Manchester City, he's more likely to turn it down than if it comes from a team like Juventus or Paris Saint-Germain.
Okay. Well, I think that takes us through the European discussion that we wanted to get through.
It does, yes.
Do you have any final word things you want to bring up?
Well, Neymar is really it's really the biggest thing. It would be the most seismic transfer
of the season, for sure.
Yeah, one of those that really changes the balance of power in soccer. And I've been dealing with transfers every window for so long. No transfers really are that exciting. Neymar is one that really gets the antenna going.
If it were to happen, and you had to relate it to another one that was just as big of a deal, when's the last time there was a deal this big?
Boy, I don't want to say, I guess I would say Ronaldo to Real Madrid.
I was going to say the same thing.
Somebody, really changes the balance of power. PSG would be a lot stronger. Barcelona would be weaker.
Yeah.
And should they meet in the Champions League, it could change the tide.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a busy week coming up. We'll be following the Gold Cup, and we'll be back with you next week, where early next week we're going to have an interview with former U.S. men's national team and Tottenham goalkeeper Brad Friedel. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, that should be fun.
He's touring the country protecting the Gold Cup So more details, tune in for that. And then we've got some pretty big name teams coming to the New England area next Sunday, AS Roma versus Juventus at Gillette Stadium. So we'll be there for full coverage. We'll also preview and talk about a little bit of Serie A talk and Roma versus Juventus on the podcast next week. And so be sure to tune in and stick around with us. And thanks for joining us this week.